Is it a publicity stunt? Was Will Smith laughing in the first place? Is his wife worth defending, giving some of the observations she's made about the state of their marriage? But all in all, welcome to this week's edition of One-2-One with Simon Jordan. Don't forget to keep liking and subscribing, and equally as importantly, to leave your questions in the comment section below. But let's get on with this week's episode. Obviously, the media are focusing a lot on the Will Smith incident with Chris Rock. I'm a big fan of Chris Rock's comedy, by the way. But I do think there's a balance between what Will Smith did and the reasons why he did it and the manner in which he did it. Look, it's very difficult. We don't know. These Hollywood stars run around advocating for every single ailment and charity and put their lifestyles up, and they can overcome this and they can overcome that. But if you're living with that person and they're incredibly distressed and then someone ridicules it, it's difficult to see what you'd do if it were my young son and he had an ailment and someone took the mickey out of them and it was being laughed at by everyone else on the stage. I'm not sure what I would do. I think probably the more dignified way to do it would have been to have gone up, got his Oscar, demolished Chris Rock in front of the world for being a flat-track bully that makes fun of people's afflictions, when really and truly that's not a dignified way for a host to behave himself. And then offline, I would have dealt with him very robustly as well. He didn't. It's been turned into a debate about whether it's been leveraged into whether violence in society, whether a black man hitting another black man and white men observing upon it is some form of racism. It's being leveraged by all kinds of agendas. What it is, it's an unedifying sight. Some might even be cynical and say Oscars figures have gone through the floor. Is it a publicity stunt? Was Will Smith laughing in the first place? Is his wife worth defending, giving some of the observations she's made about the state of their marriage? But all in all, what it is, it's not the greatest look, and we shouldn't want it, and it shouldn't also be leveraged into a raft of other things. But I think all of us making critical observations about whether we'd have done something of that nature have to understand, if you're living with somebody that's very distressed by something, and someone else, for the delectation of other people and for their own self-aggrandizing, takes the mickey out of it, what would you do? I never like to compare and contrast the different journeys that managers have to go through. Arteta, Lampard, Rooney, Gerrard, they've all got different journeys. They've all been great players in different guises for different clubs. I was an advocate for Lampard at Chelsea because I felt that he was unfairly treated. Of course, the subsequent events with Chelsea winning the Champions League and the level of performance they put on justified that decision. Arteta, I had mixed emotions about, because initially I thought he had the zeitgeist, then I thought he was an all-theory manager, and now he seems to regain some poise and some strength and character. Gerrard, at Rangers, I felt that he was still learning his trade, and I think it's a risk for Villa if they're really going to kick on economically to give it to Gerrard. But I also think him having come down to the Premier League, I can see the gravitas of him. I can see the fact that he has the cachet to be a top draw manager in personality. I'm not sure of the tactical nous. And Wayne Rooney is probably the runt of the litter in this conversation, because he's managing Derby in very different circumstances, obviously. I don't think some of his actions over the last 12 months at the beginning of the season, waking up drunk in hotels, was the ideal foil for someone wanting to be a manager. But he's managing in difficult circumstances. I'm not sure with Wayne. I'm not sure about the way that he will progress, but I'm sort of prepared to indulge the notion that he has the capability and the desire to be a manager, because he was once upon a time such a driven footballer. Of all of them, I'm beginning to probably gravitate towards either Arteta and Gerrard. Frank hasn't hit the ground running at Everton. I think he's possibly bitten off a little bit more than he can chew. Not just because Everton are in a real difficult situation right now, but because I'm not sure that he has any reference point for underachieving players in a relegation battle, and I think he might just get away with this one. So if I'm going to pick out of the runners and riders who I think is likely to do something meaningful, it will either be Arteta or Gerrard. Spurs don't make top four, then Harry Kane would in part be complicit with that. So he should look at his contract and find out what his chairman and what his manager wanted to do before he starts determining what he wants to do. He's tried that once before, it didn't work out. I'm not sure Spurs are going to make the top four. My prediction has always been Manchester United. Difficult to substantiate that argument, because United are nowhere near it, but it's such a hodgepodge of a league at this moment in time, in and around that 4th, 5th and 6th position. Any one of them can take it, irrespective of you've got games in hand. So should he be looking to leave? No, I think his time has been and gone for a big move. I don't think we're going to see Harry Kane leaving Tottenham in the summer. And I think more importantly, if Conte is in the zone and is focused and is given the resource that I suspect he's going to be given by Tottenham, then there's no reason for Harry Kane to leave, because there will be an opportunity for him to be successful at Tottenham. So I don't think Harry Kane will be leaving Tottenham in the summer, irrespective of whether they finish 4th or not. Declan Rice and Wilfried Zaha are two different animals. West Ham are at the top of the division. Palace have never really been there. Wilfried Zaha's opportunity when he went to Man United was very, very early in his career, also at a time when Man United were in flux. Also, when Wilfried Zaha was picked for England, it was when he was a championship player predominantly, and so his opportunities weren't that great. And subsequently he chose the Ivorian Coast to play for. Declan Rice is a completely different animal. He occupies a position that is a very rare breed of player plays in it. We've got a lot of wingers, we haven't got a lot of players that play the way Declan Rice does. West Ham are in a good moment in time. They've got a new ownership potentially going to take over from Golden Sullivan. So I don't think we're going to see Declan Rice at this stage of his career, or any stage of his career, appear to have missed the boat. He's the mainstay of the England team to some extent. He's the player that everyone's looking at thinking, where's he going to go and how much is he going to go for? Is he worth 100 million quid? Is any footballer worth 100 million quid? My answer would be no, but he's worth 100 million quid if someone's prepared to write a cheque out for that. And of course he's worth 100 million quid by the standards that already exist, because Jack Grealish has gone for 100 million quid. So I don't think Declan Rice is going to fall into some subcategory that includes the Wilfried Zahas of the world. And by the way, Wilfried Zaha hasn't exactly failed. He's played in a Palace side that stayed in the Premier League for much longer than at any time during its tenure. He's been successful playing for the Ivory Coast. He's been successful at Palace. It's just an unfortunate circumstance where Crystal Palace have wanted top money for Wilfried Zaha, and when the market perhaps wanted to buy him, the finances weren't there because of COVID. So I think it's a bit of a tragedy for Wilfried that he didn't get the big moves, and the big move when it did come was too early in his career. But Declan Rice will be a star, no two ways about it. It's just where he goes and the right move that he takes. If he stays at West Ham and they continue to evolve, that's great. If he moves to potentially a bigger club, then it has to be the right bigger club, because they have to be in the right condition. And if it's Manchester United people are talking about, people could argue that that's not the best move for him. I love my boxing, and I'm a great advocate for Tyson Fury, and I think he's a unique fighter because of the size of the man, because of the technical ability of him. I'm not sure that I can make a case for him to be one of the greatest fighters of all time. Generationally, I think it's unarguable that he is the greatest fighter of his generation, and I think he'll prove that when he wins the fights that he wins, whether it's against Dillian Whyte, whether it's against Alexander Usyk, or whether it's eventually against Anthony Joshua. But when you look back down the division over the years and you look at the time of Lennox Lewis, who was an outstanding fighter, you look at the time, for a period of time, a window of time for Mike Tyson, outstanding fighter. You look at Larry Holmes, and you look at the fact that he was in the shadow of Muhammad Ali, but notwithstanding it, an outstanding fighter. You look at Muhammad Ali, outstanding fighter. You even go down to Sonny Liston and beyond, you know, whether it's Rocky Marciano, and look at these fighters and say, can you really, really, truly, honestly put Tyson Fury above those guys? Some would say yes, because of the size and scale of the things that he's achieved, taking the belts away from Vladimir Klitschko in his backyard and opening up the division for everybody else, and coming back from adversity, all the ballooning of his weight and the other issues, psychological and substance abuse, to come back and demolish Deontay Wilder in 3 fights. But unless he goes on and really does something even more significant, which he's perfectly capable of, I think it's difficult to make an argument for him to be generationally anything other than a generationally really good fighter. So that's it for this week. Don't forget to leave me your thoughts on Will Smith, Harry Kane and Declan Rice. Of course, keep liking and subscribing, and equally as importantly, leave your questions in the comment section below, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week.